Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Anyway, who watched the hearings, the Jan 6 hearings with Jack Smith? Wow. I thought it was, of course, a lot of histrionics and theatrics. But you know what? I think the Republicans made a mistake. They brought Jan 6 back out to the forefront. And in doing so, they showed exactly what the president continues to be. But yes, we also know that one of the reasons they do this is to also keep the Epstein stuff, which if they're really trying to keep that out of the news by doing Greenland and all these kind of stuff, it must be bad, some of the stuff that's about to come out on the Epstein stuff. But, look, whatever the case is, the idea is Donald Trump would like to make sure that the autocracy is in full command before all the crap comes out on him, because once the autocracy is in full command, he probably believes it doesn't matter what people come out and say about him. In fact, he would probably be able to control what people get out there and speak about him, and maybe threaten anybody who speaks out against him. He come and picks them up, like they did in Chile with Pinochet, or Argentina with, ¿cómo se llama en la Argentina? The Argentinian dictator. Maybe that's what he's hoping for. Who knows? Who knows? But anyway, look, before we go there, I want to talk about what happened in Davos. I mean, because I think we are not given Davos the requisite importance that it has. There's a piece that I want to play here from the Carney. What's his name? Mark Carney, the prime minister. And I'm sorry I didn't have it ready here on TikTok, because I actually was looking at it at TikTok and I was supposed to go ahead and tag it. And I, in my infinite wisdom, did not. So as I'm looking for that, let me salute those that are here. Welcome aboard. Para ver who's here. Adam W. from, I think, Minnesota. We have Valencia. Welcome aboard. We also have Marge KJ. Welcome aboard. Annie Calais. Amy Calais. Meche. Gayla Kunis. How you doing? Joe. Deborah. Kim. Omar Hester. And of course, I missed the first few. Stephen Bliscal. On our other chat, let me welcome El Senor. Let's see. AVQ says recovering from the flu, or at least I think it was the flu, listening from AFK. Thank you, my brother. Get better and feel better, okay? I know it's hard. I've been going through some of that stuff myself. So take care of yourself. Drink a lot of fluids. Take your vitamin C. Got to go for Twitter. I got to go. I redid my computer, or not my computer, my browser. And now I have to go put some new codes in Twitter. Let's go ahead and see if that'll bring me up, allow me to come up. I hope it does. But anyhow, go take all those fluids, Michael. We need you around here. So get better and get better quick. We also have in the house Yvette Avery. Michael is from Brooklyn, New York. Yvette Avery Herod is from para ver, Atlanta, Georgia. Let's say Mark Carney. Snippet. Let's see if I get the snippet that I want come up on Twitter. But anyhow, let's see this one. Yep, this is going to be the snippet here. Great powers abandon the rules. Yeah, okay. I got it, so I'll be able to play it. Anyhow, welcome aboard, Yvette Avery Herod from Atlanta, Georgia. We also have in the house Patrick Magnus says meow from Houston, Texas. Joanne from Los Angeles, California. We have Bruce Pollard from Kingwood, Texas, in the house, as well as my brother Paul Fleming from Powder Springs, Georgia. We have Harry Denson, mi hermano favorito de Missouri City, Texas. Eric from Kingwood, Atascocita. And who is that? I don't know that. Lee Grant from Montgomery County. Welcome aboard. Who else is in the house? Lee the Bearcat from Austin, Texas. And, wow, they keep coming. Uri Deemer from somewhere there in Pasadena, right? In that area somewhere. I like LA. Yeah, I hear you. Welcome aboard as well, Judy Yeager. Amy Calais is in Massachusetts. Thank you for being here. We are from all over, baby. We are from all over. Stephen Bliscoe. Anyway, so let's get started. We are not understanding, in my humble opinion, Deer Park. That's right, Udi Deemer, Deer Park. We're not understanding what occurred yesterday with Trump's rambling speech, where he disparaged all of Europe and the rest of the world, where he was, in effect, he said that we, meaning the people from south of the equator, more than likely that's who he was talking about, was polluting these Western countries, meaning Europe. Europe, look at I don't recognize Europe anymore because Europe has gotten a tint. So he doesn't recognize Europe anymore. And they need to do something about it, like we are doing something about it, because we just look at somebody, if they look brown or Somali black or Ethiopian black or Nigerian black, we'll pick you up, throw you in the car, and ask questions later. He wants the rest of Europe to do all of that, you see? That's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about. So, Carney, Donald Trump has, maybe we are going to remain that big, strong military power for now, right? But that's it. Economics and morality, gone. The rest of the world needs about 10 years. But what Donald Trump has done is made us now, we are still to some extent indispensable, but he's made it that they are moving away. We have the alliances that's being built between Canada and China, Venezuela and China, and all these other things that the United States will not be able to do anything about in the long run. Right now, the world depends on SWIFT, the most of the world. That's how they exchange commerce, using the SWIFT system in the banks. BRICS is coming up to speed, and others. The reliance on America has been put on steroids because of Donald Trump and how Donald Trump is attempting to use American power. And we don't see that as a problem. Well, many of us do, but too many don't. I want you to listen to what Carney had to say here. I think this is the one. I want you to listen to what Carney had to say as the Prime Minister of Canada. And then we'll take it as a short piece.
It seems that every day we're reminded that we live in an era of great power rivalry, that the rules-based order is fading, that the strong can do what they can and the weak must suffer what they must. And faced with this logic, there is a strong tendency for countries to go along to get along, to accommodate, to avoid trouble, to hope that compliance will buy safety. Well, it won't. And the question for middle powers like Canada is not whether to adapt to the new reality. We must. The question is whether we adapt by simply building higher walls or whether we can do something more ambitious. In a world of great power rivalry, the countries in between have a choice: compete with each other for favor, or to combine to create a third path with impact. We shouldn't allow the rise of hard power to blind us to the fact that the power of legitimacy, integrity, and rules will remain strong if we choose to wield them together. It seems that
Now, that is powerful. That is powerful. Mark Carney, with that statement within a great speech, took the moral power away from the United States, a false moral power, albeit, but with one that has more legitimacy. What you just heard out of Mark Carney is a call to order to all secondary countries to work as a whole. Yes, they will have problems among each other, but by working together, they prevent the bullies, whether that be the United States, whether that be Russia, whether that be China. And then they play on an equal keel. And in that speech and in working at Davos with others, because remember, Donald Trump just got to Davos yesterday, but Carney has been putting this message out there all along. And it's amazing how quickly Donald Trump had to cave on Greenland. Because by the time Carney and the EU had finished doing what they intended to do, they made it clear to the United States that, okay, you try any crap and your economy is done. It's toast. And they started not yesterday, but they started not with the drop of the stock market, because what precipitated the drop of the stock market wasn't any value based stock or anything like that. It was what they started to do with the bonds, what they started to do with our money. I want to remind people of something, and that, many of us don't know the intricacies of economics. But let me tell you one thing, right? The dollar bill that you have in your hands, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that dollar is based on. There's not potatoes, there's not gold. There was a time when monies would be backed by gold or silver. I still think that is rather stupid. You can't eat gold and you can't eat silver. You can't drive gold and you can't drive silver. But money could be backed by things like potatoes and oil and all that kind of stuff, your natural resources. Your money can have something. If you have something to barter, you can create an object that represent that entity that you want to barter. Let me explain. If you take a look at Venezuela, how Trump wants to own Venezuela's oil. Venezuela's currency, if they wanted it to be, could be much more valuable than America's currency, because Venezuela can say, I am for the small population on that amount of land, based on the natural resources that Venezuela has, they are rich. But in a capitalist system that does not really back their money system, their sovereign currency, with nothing of real value, it doesn't matter how much oil they have, as long as we have the facade of a strong sovereign dollar. But with Donald Trump playing the fool and other people wising up and saying, wait a minute, we can get out of SWIFT. We can create our own form of bartering. In fact, Venezuela proved that. How did Venezuela prove that? Venezuela, yes, their oil infrastructure is toast, but they're still pumping oil. And they were still exporting oil, even with the embargo. And while they couldn't use SWIFT to get money, they were doing as the president, as the professor that I interviewed. What's her name? Devin, forgot her name. The professor that I interviewed pointed out they were using all kinds of methods to go around it. They were bartering oil for products from India. They were bartering oil for so they were bartering oil to Cuba for doctors. They were bartering oil to other countries for medicine. The oil was their money. Now, America has a lot of resources as well. Let's be clear. But the problem with America's resources is that it is tied up in the plutocracy. We have oil. In Venezuela, the oil belongs to the people. And that's what America can't stand. In Venezuela, the corporations don't own the oil. In America, even though the oil was put there by whomever, whatever, and if the oil is under the land of America, it should disperse to all of us. In America, all that oil belongs to the corporations that dig it up, and then they pay a royalty to the American government, but they get that royalty back because they get something called a depletion allowance expense. So they take out all the oil, they make a profit, they send some of that as a royalty, maybe 12% to the United States as a royalty for that oil, and then they claim a deduction called a depletion allowance because they're pulling oil out, and the depletion allowance assume you're losing value in the oil and you take some sort of an expense for that. Ridiculous. But those are the things our government have allowed because we have been asleep to do to give ourselves away to them. So getting back to the dollar, our dollar is based on nothing. And you can say, wait a minute, but we have iron ore, we have oil, we have this, we have that. True. But you know what? We already leveraged. We have leveraged our dollar over 30 something trillion dollars of those dollars are in the hands of Europe, China, Japan, and all these other countries. So they can cash that in and eventually can say, oh my God, but that money is not backed by anything. Are we going to have to start depleting our resources as an exchange to assign it something to prevent it from free falling? You see, people don't understand these concepts. They don't. They don't understand these concepts. So the United States is not all that rich on a per capita basis based on capitalism. A few people have an inordinate amount of wealth, and we allowed them to pilfer us. We allowed them to rape us. When one person has $400 billion, all of that is your money that they took. When those oil barons take the oil out of the ground on public lands and you get none of it, that's just them legally stealing it from you under our current economic system. But Venezuela, under their system, that oil belongs to everybody. And we can't allow that because Americans may get smart and say, wait a minute, why can't we have that? So instead, what we do is we cripple their economy. We put a blockade. We prevent them from using SWIFT. We do all these things to ensure their economy cave, even as rich as they are. And then we say it's their economic system that actually doesn't work. No, it's not. It's that we killed their economic system, like we did to Cuba, like we do to every country that decides that they're trying to do something on for their people. So now, with Carney giving a speech saying, look, rest of the world, let's work together. America is 4 to 4.5% of the world's population. I repeat, America is between 4 to 4.5% of the population. America for a long time thought, well, our farming is so good. We export so much food. We do all these things, which is true. But you know who else have great farming? Argentina. You know else who have great farming? Chile. You know who else have great farming? Ukraine. All these other places have great farming. We again represent 4 to 4.5% of the population. There's not we are If you want to know what is expendable, we are. It'll take some adjusting because what we have done is our corporations are intertwined in the economies of many countries. But think about this: nationalize the damn thing. Guess what? All our stuff is made in China. So America is a great country, but we don't make anything anymore. The real powerhouses in this country, and hear me out, guys, hear me out, are teachers and farmers. Okay? Teachers and farmers. Those are the ones that are going to really, those are the people of real value in our economy. Teachers, I'm not discounting doctors and lawyers and all of that. What I'm trying to say is when we're looking at a product of you look at teachers and you look at farmers, and who are those that are the most disparaged in our country, in our economy? Teachers and farmers. Farmers get screwed by agribusiness. Teachers get screwed by politicians who refuse to collect the taxes necessary to pay them the type of salaries they've earned. Again, Carney, with that speech and telling all the rest, let's work together. After all, in most of our countries that will be working together, our people are happier. They have universal health care. They have universal child care. They have family leave. They also have mandated vacations. They have all these things in these other countries that Donald Trump went out there and disparaged. Greenland? Why the hell would somebody in Greenland want to become an American citizen when as soon as they become an American citizen, their health care is in jeopardy? Why would they want to do that? Why the hell would they want to do that? I want you to think about these things, people. When you hear all this crap, we have to take back control of our country. And after taking back control of the country, it's not going to be the rest of the world running back for a status quo. That is over. Donald Trump destroyed the facade that we had of being the leaders of the free world. Donald Trump destroyed the facade of us being indispensable. Donald Trump did all of that because people, when they look, there's a thing that Republicans talk about that is very true. If you create a dependent people, a people that are always dependent on something, right? They eventually just keep, to put it bluntly, sucking on the tit. Okay? Because it's easier. Water finds the easiest path to get out of. Water does, right? But once you have to take care of yourself, once you have to to survive, you have to do it on your own. We all do. We all do. That's why I always talk about loving to have the conservative pullback on myself. Because I'm a liberal as they come, and there are times I would just want to give, 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 give. But there is some truth to having people, having some people having to work a little bit harder for something, and that is what the European countries and all these others are finding out now, right? For the longest time, they didn't spend as much or do as much with their own defense. And the reason why is they had daddy, the United States of America, who loved to intervene in countries. They said, okay, you want to do a lot of intervening? You pay for the stuff. You pay to have that big ass military. That's fine. We'll take our money and make life better for our citizens. So while we made life better for the defense industrial complex, While we made our life better for the plutocracy, the oligarchy, the wealthy, their wealthy did well too, but they ensured that they kept a happy population. They ensured that they gave health care, child care, vacations, and all these things. We didn't. Now they're realizing they're going to have to do a lot on their own because they understand now that dependency on a country who could have elected Donald Trump is not something you can depend on, it's not something you can trust, it's not something of any value. And that is what Trump has done to us, and it will cause our quick decline. Our decline. Capitalism has been killing us over the last since Reaganomics took the stops out of it, and it's about to get it all. And Carney, mark my word, Carney, who is a capitalist. Don't get me wrong. He's a capitalist, but a social capitalist. Well, I like to call him a social free enterpriser, not completely a capitalist, though he worked in banking, etc. But what he has become the de facto moral leader of democracy and fight against the bullies. You know something is up when the Washington Post writes an op-ed. Remember, the Washington Post used to be that liberal paper. I want you guys to remember this. The Washington Post used to be that liberal paper. But you know what they did this morning? An op-ed came out. You remember op-eds at the Washington Post always had a very progressive bias. Well, it came out today, and they slaughtered Mark Carney. They slaughtered Mark Carney. He should not be going and making deals with China. Mark Carney is naive for making a deal with China. Even though he's been disrespected and tariffed by Donald Trump, he should just sit back and take it. Please, guys, go to the op-ed section of the Washington Post. Just scan for Mark Carney and read that op-ed. A stupid op-ed. Things are so much that I'm using words I don't like to use on radio. A bad op-ed. They're Now they're telling me go ahead and take the crap from Trump. The problem is the following: we have been led to believe of the benevolency of our plutocracy and America throughout the world, which has always been false. But the reason we accept it is, well, they treat Panama like crap, but I'm over here now. They treat Costa Rica like crap, but I'm over there. A lot of Costa Ricans are over here now. They treat Nigerians like crap, but a lot of Nigerians are over here now. Okay? Since Bezos bought the Post, it's been a mess. But anyhow, look, America has always been extractive with other countries. It's always bullied out of the countries. Read Naomi Klein's book, Disaster Capitalism, or something like that. Okay? We've always done it, but we've done it with a smile and a false sense of democracy. But China is doing it a whole lot differently. China take care of its people. They all have health care. They have all that good stuff. Look at all those people that are moving from the United States into China, buying homes and building up over there. China is doing it a lot differently. They're going all over the world and they're investing in these other countries. And you know what? And the things that they make sure not to do, they do not get involved in the internal business of those countries. They don't say, for me to invest in this, you have to change X, Y, and Z. They go, they learn the country, they learn about their expats out there, and they conform to that country. Do they have problems? Hell yes. I mean, the same kind of problems you have when you merge in cultures, etc. You will hear the Kenyans talk about the Chinese being exclusionary in a whole lot of ways. But then again, They go to Kenya, and then eventually now you start seeing all these Blasian babies, right? They go out to these places, and eventually, they integrate with these places, and that's what they're doing. They're doing that they've been doing that in Panama for decades. They're doing that throughout South America. They're building. Donald Trump says Venezuela needs to kick China out. How the hell are you gonna kick China out when they have invested in the biggest offshore platform in El Golfo de Maracaibo in Venezuela? How are you going to kick them out? How are you going to kick out Russia, who's actually had exchanges with deals to give them infrastructure that the United States prevent them from having? You see, we like to be bullies and think people are just going to sit down and wait till we do. They want to kick out all these people, but they don't want to offer repair equipment or anything. Well, China and Russia has. Same thing with Cuba. We were supporters of Batista before the Cuban Revolution. When Batista was in power, anybody in Cuba who looked like me was sweeping floors or on a stage dancing and singing. That's it. That was little America in Cuba. That's what you had in Cuba. Jim Crow in Cuba. Because all the wealthy Americans lived in Havana and all these other things. When La Revolucion came with Fidel Castro, you wondered why a whole lot of Latin Americans were actually like Castro. Not the Latin American plutocracy, the Latin American people. Why they were happy with Castro? Because at that point, all la gente que se ve como yo, the people who look like me, the mestizos as well, los indígenas y todos, the indigenous and everybody else, they became a part of society. They become engineers, lawyers, doctors. There were so many of them that came out of Cuba that Cuba was exporting doctors to Angola, exporting doctors to Kenya, exporting doctors to Grenada, exporting doctors to Venezuela, that little country off the coast of Florida. But you don't hear that here, right? You don't hear that they starved them so badly. We blockade them so badly that they had to develop stuff on their own. So they developed their own vaccines. They developed their own, all these things that they couldn't get because they had to. Because they had to. You know who was the first country Castro approached when after he kicked Batista out? The United States. He wanted to partner with the United States and he was rebuffed. See, we couldn't have those damn socialists out there who are trying to build the country from the bottom up. We couldn't have those people. So he did the next best thing. He went ahead and went to Russia. And Russia said, "Yep, baby. Close to America." That was a short-sightedness of America. America should have embraced Castro, and it would have been a democratic socialist place today. But they didn't. They didn't. Wow, my monologue went pretty long. But anyway, I have a few videos I want to show. The first one is this. I am tired of the business class appeasing Donald Trump. I want you to listen to, what's his name here? Andrew Ross Sorkin. Because Donald Trump made a mess. Donald Trump destroyed America in Davos. Look, it's not going to be immediately seen, but it's a slow burn. I repeat, it's a slow burn. Donald Trump has destroyed who America was, and it concluded in Davos. Mark Carney is now the moral leader of the Western democracies. I want you to listen to this and then and show you. I have a question for Andrew Sorkin because I don't know where the hell he is or what he's saying here. Check this out.
Andrew Ross Sorkin, can you talk a little bit about the market reaction that we've seen, even around the world, to Trump's moves and words on the issue of Greenland, and also his attitude toward NATO and Europe and the many insults that he laid out during his remarks yesterday?
Right. Well, I think that's the bigger issue, and I think it's also the whiplash in the market. You know, he created this instability over the last several days by putting this idea of military action on the table, by putting these tariffs on the table. That created a downward draft in the market, a lot of questions about what that could ultimately look like. And then, of course, in his own making, meaning all of this is, self-made on the one end, self-made on the other, because he ultimately didn't get what he wanted. By the way, he did see the market reacting. Some people call this the taco trade, in that, Trump, is always willing effectively to cede ground, if you will. That's my own new version of taco. But, I think that is the question. But again, I think the bigger issue is when you come to a place like Davos and you tell the world that, globalization doesn't work and that what you're doing doesn't work. Maybe it's tough love, but it's tough love that part of the world doesn't want to hear. And again, I think raises some larger questions about what it ultimately means. Having said that, I should also tell you, by the way, there are American CEOs, and I talked to a number of them privately. They don't want to come on screen and say this publicly, but they're concerned about it, and they actually were feeling that concern because they're talking to their, international customers and other businesses, and that's what they're getting back to them. So again, I think there's an issue that has to be considered in all of this, and you're not hearing it necessarily directly from those individuals, in part, and we've talked about this too, because of the fear factor.
Now, if I understand him correctly, and I really tried, I cut that, I played that, I repeat that, all that, and I'm like, what the hell is he saying? That he is hearing from business people around the world that globalism somehow is a bad thing, meaning all these people that are migrating into Europe and the United States or something, it's a bad thing, etc. Who the hell is he talking to? I've been watching him for a while and watching him somehow try to give Donald Trump plausibility as if Donald Trump has any intellect whatsoever. And this is a problem when I talk to many of you about capitalism. Capitalism has nothing to do with intellect. It has nothing to do with meritocracy. It has everything to do with those who have capital and that little family of capital owners who think together. And not all of them are bad, but a lot of them, Donald Trump and all those who follow Donald Trump, Bezos, horrendous, Musk, terrible, the guy who owned PayPal, horrendous. Let's be clear here. When we talk about globalism in the respect that they're talking about, you have to wonder, what the hell are they saying? Globalism, they wanted globalism to offset their pricing, and they screwed their own in the process. And now that they're seeing, look at how China has been making all this money. China exported more than it has ever exported since the United States started with this tariff crap. Now that they built their own graves, they're sitting down there saying, oh, we don't know about globalism anymore. It is amazing, folks. Like I said, it's amazing. Anyway, enough of that with Davos, enough of that with the economy. I want to talk now a little bit about what occurred on today. I'm going to start with what Representative Swalwell had to say. Swalwell made my day the way he slammed his Republican representative brothers and sisters, because he told the truth that I imagine some of them were saying, okay, it's okay for you to say that, Swalwell. Please don't call my name, because I know I've told you this, but please don't call my name, Swalwell. Check this out. This is what Swalwell had to say when he had his turn at the hearing today. I think you're going to find it quite amusing.
Everything right. Harry Dunn, Danny Hodges, Sergeant Cannell, Mike Fanone, they did everything right. These guys, my Republican colleagues, are a joke. They're wrong. History will harshly judge them. So I want you to lean in today. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You did everything right, sir. And these guys are so lucky they're not under oath, because they would have to tell you what they really think of Trump. They call him crooked. They call him cruel. They call him a scumbag. I've heard you all say it. You're lucky you're not under Trump, but when the lights go on and the cameras are on, you're tiny, you're small, you shrink. Everyone remembers Matt Gaetz coming over here after a committee hearing. He would laugh at how stupid he thought Trump was. This is all a show. And Mr. Smith, you're just the latest act that they've brought in. But they can't erase what happened on January 6th because we saw it with our own eyes. Mr. Smith, after the mainstream media called the race for Biden about a week after the election, did Donald Trump concede the election?
He did not.
The next month, the Electoral College met in every state and voted Biden as the winner. Did Donald Trump concede then?
He did not.
Shortly after that, the last court case that Donald Trump brought was thrown out. Did he concede then?
No.
Is it your judgment then that only Donald Trump could have convened the mob in the size that it was assembled on January 6th?
Our assessment of the evidence is that he is the person most responsible for what happened on January 6th. He caused what happened. It was foreseeable to him. And then when it happened, he tried to exploit it in furtherance of the conspiracy.
And you actually obtained indictments from a grand jury, right? You went to a grand jury and did something that the Trump administration has not been able to do as they go after their enemies. Their cases are being thrown out. You obtained criminal indictments against the president. Is that right?
That's correct.
Mr. Smith, do you know who Edward Loya is?
I'm sorry?
Edward Loya, L-O-Y-A?
I believe Mr. Loya worked at the public integrity section when I was there.
Did you know that he said of you, when it comes to investigating allegations of sophisticated federal criminal matters, Jack Smith is the gold standard? Do you know who Mr. James McGovern is?
Yes, he was a prosecutor I worked with in New York.
Did you know that he said of you, I have no idea what Mr. Smith's political beliefs are because he's completely apolitical? So are you a registered independent?
I have no partisan loyalties. I don't know if I'm registered as independent or not registered at all.
Are you glad you accepted Attorney General Garland's request to be a special prosecutor, even though you've been dragged over political barbed wire and your family has been subjected to death threats?
I don't regret it.
Do you remember where you were on September 11th?
I do.
What did you think of that day?
I was in Brooklyn when that happened. I was at the command center that night. I worked on that investigation. I remember pretty clearly.
Do you remember where you were on January 6th?
On January 6th, I was living in Europe working for the State Department seconded to a war crimes tribunal.
What did you think as you watched on television what happened at the Capitol that day?
To be honest with you, I don't recall if I saw it that day or a later day because of the time period.
What did you think when you saw it?
I was shocked. I was shocked by it. I obviously, being in Europe and not following things as closely, I was not, frankly, up to speed on the events leading up to it.
What shocked you about it?
I just never seen anything like that happen in our country.
Mr. Smith, I don't know if I'll ever have the honor to talk to you again. If I don't, please know that I and my colleagues on the Democratic side, and even my Republican colleagues when they speak privately, have nothing but respect and appreciation for what you tried to do and how you did it.
Absolutely. So I'm so glad he expressed himself the way he did. But in as much as he asked important and pertinent questions to Jack Smith, what I love is that he pointed out to his Republican brothers and sisters, hey, don't forget, you guys have always come over here and talk about how dumb you think Donald Trump is or how stupid Donald Trump is. And then when the cameras are on, you get tiny, you get very small. You can no longer tell the truth. But none of you have any respect for Donald Trump. You just fear him and you act it out. you fear Donald Trump, and you should be ashamed for how fearful you are. It is funny because that is how it is with most people. Most people don't like Donald Trump, and he knows it. Eric asks, why don't I show some of the other side? This is a truthful program. We don't show fantasy on this show. So there's nothing I'll play from Republicans who came out here on that thing, because nothing that they were talking was real. Why the hell will I add more to the unreality? Why the hell would I add BS to the airwaves? I won't. So you will never see that crap on my channel, ever, because they're liars. I don't put liars on. Well, I put liars if I need to make a point. If I need to make a point, I'll put the liars on. Anyway, let's go ahead and listen to Jasmine, because Jasmine was also very good. She really excoriated Donald Trump as no one else could. Check this out.
Thank you so much for showing up, because this was something that you wanted to do. The Republicans wanted to make sure that you were hid in a room with no cameras, because I was there. They didn't really want you out public because they were afraid of what you would say, which is that you could have proven your case because you are a career prosecutor who knows how to prosecute criminals. So just to be clear, today, it seems like the Republicans have not really fought very much about whether or not Trump was guilty or not. In fact, their fight seems to be over whether or not you were authorized to prove their guilt. Do you recall a number of Republican members asking about whether or not your appointment was okay, even though we know that you've testified about the more than 100-year precedent that allowed for your appointment?
I was asked questions about that today, and our position, as we filed in our appeal, is that there was strong support for my appointment, including Supreme Court precedent directly on point.
Thank you so much. Additionally, everybody's been all gingerly here today, but I don't know why we're acting surprised that a man who had close to 90 allegations out of 4 different jurisdictions and ultimately ended up with 34 convictions after a jury was able to hear all the evidence would possibly be committing a criminal act on January 6th. In fact, considering the fact that we are now under the impression that he is violating people's due process rights, he is ignoring court orders, he's starting wars without congressional authority in contradiction to the Constitution. He's enriching himself to the tune of over $1.4 billion. He's shaking down electeds to draw maps that will help him stay in power, because the Republicans don't understand that they swore an oath to the Constitution and that we are supposed to do checks and balances. He's also shaking down TV stations to get money. So why are we trying to pretend as if it is out of the realm for this particular man to commit the crime that he committed on January 6th. And frankly, the only reason he ran for president was to make sure that he would not be prosecuted, because I fully believe that you would have put him under the jail based on our long form conversation that we had. But according to your special counsel report on page 137, it states the department's view that the Constitution prohibits the continued indictment and prosecution of a president is categorical and does not turn on the gravity of the crimes charged, the strength of the government's proof, or the merits of the prosecution. And that, quote, but for Mr. Trump's election and imminent return to the presidency, the office assessed that the admissible evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial. In other words, Donald Trump ran for president, like I said, so he wouldn't have to spend the rest of his life in prison. The chairman and other members of this committee have spent all day attacking you and trying to rewrite the history of January 6th. But Mr. Jim Jordan, the chairman, failed to mention how he was running around the Capitol terrified by the possibility that all those insurrectionists would harm him. In fact, on page 97 of the deposition transcript, you mentioned how Mark Meadows, the president's chief of staff, quote unquote, never saw Jim Jordan so scared. The chairman also failed to mention that he was in direct contact with the White House in the days leading up to and on January 6th, which is why his toll records were subpoenaed by your office. Let me be clear, because they're trying to act like this is Democrats on Republicans, and I guess you are a covert Democrat that knew that he was going to try to steal an election before he tried to steal that election, and so therefore you were somehow put into place. I mean, the conspiracy theories make your head spin, but nevertheless, were you going to subpoena the toll records of every single Republican simply because they were a Republican?
No, we subpoenaed the toll records in the course of this investigation because they were relevant to our investigation.
Relevant. Oh, okay. All right. So that means something about facts. So let's talk about facts. Donald Trump lost to Joe Biden, yes or no?
That's correct.
Okay. In fact, 60 federal and state courts have found that there was no evidence of election fraud. Trump's own attorney general and vice president knew that he lost the election, but he still tried to steal the election by pressuring state officials, designing fake elector plans, nearly having Mike Pence hanged, and ultimately demanding that his supporters, quote, fight like hell, correct?
Correct.
We all saw it happen we all saw what happened once they reached the U.S. Capitol. As your report outlines, President Trump knew that he would incite violence at the Capitol that day. In fact, some of Trump's senior advisors were pushing for violence. For example, page 81 of the report details how co-conspirators number 2, John Eastman, tried to convince Mike Pence to break the law, stating that, quote, violence was necessary. So it isn't just Trump who is responsible for the death of multiple law enforcement officers and the injuries of thousands of people. A lot of Republican members of Congress are also responsible. 147 Republicans voted to overturn the 2020 election results, including multiple members currently serving on this committee, and I will yield.
In other words, what Jasmine is also saying, Republicans are the Republican politicians in that room, some of them in the hearing, are complicit in the insurrection of January 6, 2021. Those insurrectionists include Republican representatives and Republican senators. And you know what? Michael Rudnin is right. All things weren't done right. They should have charged those guys as well, because they are insurrectionists. They are traitors. And something needs to be done about it. And you know what? We still have time. All right, Michael Rudnin wants me to read this. New York Times report, Trump reportedly made over $1.4 billion in 1 year as president, prompting scrutiny over profits tied to political power. New York Times noted that the 1.4 billion figure is an underestimate because some of its profits remain hidden hidden from public view, and they continue to grow. The amount also doesn't include his $5 billion crypto coin scam or soon to be $10 billion Saudi Arabia real estate prospects. That is so sad, so true, so right. But anyway, we are at 56, which means I don't have time to play the last video. Folks, I may shut down a little bit early today because I got some Pantex work I gotta get done before I get back to finishing up my book. So let's go ahead and start or shut down, unless somebody wants to call in and say something real quickly. 281-823-7747. I'll wait for 30 seconds. 281-823-7747. If anybody wants to call in and say something, please do so now, my dear brothers and sisters. In the interim, please support the program, support the channel. How can you do that? By becoming subscribers of our newsletter. If you're on Substack, just click that subscribe button and become a paid subscriber. Or you can just go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, which I just placed it in the chat. In both chats, I'm placing it. Become a subscriber, a paid subscriber. I would appreciate that. We are badly in need of our funds to keep this thing going. So if you can become a paid subscriber, that little coffee goes a long way. That little coffee goes a long way. So anyhow, folks, I want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you all in advance for sharing, and a big thank you in advance for anyone who decides to be a part of the solution, help us do what we do, which is not only it's not only what we do here on the radio, but what we do at 6 every morning on terrestrial radio. All the articles we put out, all the texts we put out, all the TikToks, Instagram, and all that stuff. We really work hard to get our message out. So please support the project. Go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, or if you're on Substack, just subscribe to our newsletter. That will make a difference. It'll make a huge difference. Anyway, got to get out of here. Love you all. Big love to all of you. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? What am I again? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.